go.
All right. All right. Good morning, guys. So basically, I wanted to kind of just, Renard's already kind of knew about this, but I wanted you guys to know, at least for as you're using your iPads, you can go into Service Titan, and I can't show you the exact thing here because obviously, as a manager, I have everyone's board here. But on your iPad, when you go into your iPad and you have already created an invoice and you're on a job, and you need to go do a purchase order, okay? So Renard's may be able to show you, but when you go into invoice on the left-hand side, so I'm going to go into one, or into the invoice. So when you go into invoice, what's going to kind of show up on there is this something similar to this, but it's going to see an option when you hit invoice that add a purchase order. So you guys can actually add your own purchase orders rather than having to call in, get a purchase order number.
Are you using this one?
So rather than having to call in, get a purchase order number and all of that.
And just add a new one.
Yeah. So
Just type in what it is?
Yep. So basically what you're going to do is once you click on it.
Oh my God.
Believe you? Okay.
Because this is why I always like send these guys on.
So look up here. See, it has a purchase order.
A number.
That's dope.
All right.
Awesome.
So now Sarah's walking in, so I'm going to throw this out again. And Mike too. So when you guys go into your into Service Titan, and you guys can create your own purchase orders. So what you do is you go into invoice on your iPad. Quiet, guys. You're going to go into invoice on your pad, and then you're going to click Add Purchase Order. When you click Add Purchase Order, it's going to show you an amount. Put the amount in. You should have that from the vendor. But I'm going to show you something else as well. So let's say I don't know the amount. I just leave 0 for right now. And then I'm going to go ahead and select the vendor. All this is the drop down. When you hit the drop down, you're going to put in your Ferguson or whoever it is, Home Depot, doesn't matter, right? Whichever one it is.
That's way better.
You don't need to worry about the vendor invoice number. Then you're going to go into the technician, which is yourself. So let's say it's Sarah.
Oh, we don't. On our system.
Oh, yours is going to automatically, yeah. You know what? Whoever puts it in is going to automatically. But
So we don't have to worry about that.
you don't need to worry about that. But you want to put the dollar amount in, you want to put the vendor in, and then type in what it is. Miscellaneous parts, I don't care, as long as I know it's for that. So that when you turn your paperwork in each Monday, just include whatever invoices you have with the paperwork on the back of that day, so I can kind of validate and verify what they are. That way the office doesn't have to. And sometimes, this is if you do it yourself, right? Obviously, if you have Bryce getting you parts, that's different. Bryce will get them, he'll turn those in, and then we'll verify them in the office. But basically type in miscellaneous parts, whatever it is. It can be wax rings, I don't care. I mean, HVAC, condenser, I don't care. But then you hit save. Now, once you're in this, or have done that, when you go into this page where you can kind of see where your tasks are and everything, there's no task in this job right now, I'm just kind of showing you. You can actually edit that amount. Now, I'm not sure if you have an edit button like this on there, where you can change now you can add the price. So now you got the parts, you got everything, you can go in, you just click edit, and then now you go put in the dollar amount. 25 bucks, whatever it is. And then hit save again, okay? So now, that way you guys don't have to call in every time for a purchase order. You still have to make sure they're in, okay? So, the purchase order number shows up here, right next to it on this screen, the same where your tasks are at, or it's also in the notes. You can go into your notes and it'll say that you put in your own purchase order number at such and such time, because it basically it tracks everything that's done on each job, right? And it'll show that number there as well. Okay? So you guys shouldn't be able to delete them, but you should be able to adjust them. I'm just deleting this because there's not really a purchase order on that job for this. So any questions on that?
What about returns?
Okay, so returns are a negative number. So it's the same thing. If you return, maybe you only return part of an order, right? $5.76, just put negative 5.76 and returned wax ring, and you're done. save it, and you're done.
And then just turn in the sheet.
Yep, turn in the return sheet with it so I can see it was returned, credited to us, and we're good. Okay? So that should make your lives a little easier out in the field. And I also, on the new sheets, once the sheets, if they're not already recycled through the older, your payroll sheets, they're going to have customer name on them as well, the next one. So once we run out of the old ones, I don't want to just throw them away. You can write them on there in the meantime if you want, but when I'm doing payroll, I'm finding a lot of one number mistakes, or it looks like there's two of the same job and it's not, type of thing. So please, if you write the customer's name as well, because some things, Sarah will tell you, she had two jobs or $1,200 and something, and she had the same job number on both, but they were off by 20 bucks. So I looked in both numbers. I didn't see the one number, but I did see the other one, so I just assumed it was a duplicate. Well, it wasn't. She had an $800 job and a $1,200 and something job. It was a little over $2,000, and she kind of separated the $800 and $1,200 job out. So when I look up for a job, I'm going to show you guys how I do it. I can go in, we can go in and search a lot of different ways. By the job number, if I knew that, or I can go down by the total. So if I have a $1,267 job, and that's the number you put in there, I can also look it up that way. I can search it and say, okay, it's going to show me anything that's in that range. Well, there's nothing. There's nothing 1,267 exactly, for an example, right? So if your number's wrong on there, even by a penny, then I have to do a range. Then I have to keep searching. I can search for 10 minutes trying to find a job sometimes. But what you don't want to do, if you have two different jobs, one of them, let's say, I think she did on the 29th, it was $800 and some change. And then she basically rescheduled it, did another job a couple days later. Another task on the same job. So now, basically, she wrote the first job at $800 and she did it on the 29th, so I had that paper. Then she did one on the 31st for the $1,200 and something. And the problem is, I can't see those. Those are tasks in a job. I can't see those individually. I have to know what that, if that job number was written correctly, then I would have been able to find it. But if you miss the job number, and then those dollar amounts, even though they're correct, but they actually added together to a higher number, it's really difficult to find that. So then I got to go basically back to those days and look at every single job you did those days. So that's another way I can do it, but it took a long time to find it. So going forward, just make sure if you have several tasks that are not going to be done at the same time, not closed out, then you need to basically close out the first job by itself on Monday, for an example. If you're going to do another job, we can open up another ticket and we can make that, instead of just being a job, we can make it a project, right? So if you're doing, let's say you're doing HVAC and you're doing drain lines on a job, that's actually a project now, because they're not both in the same category. Going forward in the reports, we want to be able to separate plumbing and HVAC. We can't do that very well, that way. And then also on your sheets, it's a lot more difficult for me to search numbers when they are kind of part of the same job and you're separating them out. So I'd rather see whatever the job gets closed out as, that's the number I want to see on there. So you could have just put, another option would have been on Monday, 0, because I didn't collect yet, right? Now Wednesday that I did both of those jobs, 800 and 1,200, now it's 2,000, whatever. So give me the whole number there, because it's for your week. You're going to get paid the same way, but you're not separating it out. Does that make sense? So you can't have task 1 for $800, task 2 for $1,200, close out. You're not closing out the ticket, but then give me a paper that says $800 on Monday and $1,200 on Wednesday when you did that part, because the numbers aren't added together and I'm going to have a hard time finding it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so that's kind of like the Elizabeth Szabo job that we had.
Yeah.
There was plumbing stuff and hydronic stuff, and it
Right, yeah.
kind of crossed over.
Yeah, so any of those type of jobs, I mean, it's easy to just make that a project, do the tasks for plumbing on one and the HVAC on the other, meaning another project, That way we actually have 2 different invoices for that, one for HVAC and one for plumbing, okay? So yeah, and whatever you close out, whatever the sale is what I want to see on the ticket that you're collecting on. You may show your hours on that Monday sheet, because I had hours for the $800 job that I completed or the task. And then Wednesday I completed the rest of it, and I collected everything there. So I can still see your hours, but just, you know, you can even say see the next date or 2 days later or whatever, and I'll know. And the job numbers should be basically the same. It's just one's a 0 and one's going to be a 1200. Okay? So I wanted to go over that because it kind of makes it a lot easier to do payroll when I can actually see the numbers and they all match up and so on. Okay. There's a lot of things. Tomorrow I'm meeting with over the phone with Service Titan, because there's a lot of things that when I go to the dashboard, if you guys know what the dashboard is supposed to show,
It's all jacked up.
there's nothing. You know, just basically, it's supposed to show how we're doing as a company on a day-by-day basis. I can drill down to each individual person on a whatever period of time I'm putting in, from the year, for a month, for the week, and it'll show all types of information from dispatch, how they're doing. In other words, how they're booking their calls. Are they booking, as the customer calls in, are they actually getting the call, or booking it, a job, or is it just hang up and we don't book a call? So there's a lot of information that Service Titan allows us to see. That's if we're doing all the steps properly. Also, even when it goes all the way back to the accounting department, when we close things out a certain way, that's where it kind of shows me how you guys are doing. Like who gets the sale, what's your closing rates, all of that good stuff. Right now, we're not really getting any accurate information because it's not being done properly. So there's going to be some procedural changes. This is not going to affect you guys a lot, but you'll start seeing probably it might take a couple of months, but you'll start seeing the numbers up there in your names in the dashboard, and it will change. But I've got to go through the meeting I'm having tomorrow. It's just a preliminary meeting, so that I can kind of make sure that all of the steps are being met to get the information we need. But it'll also help sales guys when they can see how their team is doing and their closing rates and their sales and your, everything, your volume. So that's coming, but I've got to kind of meet with them first, and then either I'm going to go there or they're going to come here, and we're going to figure something else out to make sure that accounting's doing their part, dispatch is doing their part, and so on, because it's really not where it needs to be at this point. So that's just kind of a you'll start seeing that. So when you see on your own dashboards individually and you sign in, you'll see information that you haven't seen before. So as that starts to come, it's not going to be accurate right away because it's a little bit at a time. It's going to start happening, but then you guys will understand why. So I just want you to kind of, hey, what does this mean? What does this mean? What does that mean? Well, we're going to start tracking that information in the system so that we all can have a shot at how we're doing individually, and then as managers can see how everyone's doing together. Okay. There's not a lot more that I had this morning. Today is where the beginning starts for our 6-week. We signed all the paperwork last week. Everything starts today on our new website development and all of that good stuff for the marketing that we've been talking about is coming. So it could be sooner than 6 weeks, but they're starting on it actually today, and that should help everybody as far as calls and all the stuff that's going on. So that we've been talking about. The board, there's not a lot on the board today. If you guys, I had it up here a minute ago, there's not a whole lot on there. So we do have, unless Kevin has something specific he wants for Jesse, James, and Christian, we need to get that last truck taken care of. I think we have flyers too, still, that can be done. And make sure we take more than one vehicle in case something happens again. So we need to.
I have a couple of jobs that I have to complete that aren't up there.
Okay.
Right. So we have a couple more on the plumbing side.
Okay. Yeah. So if you're not doing anything, the truck and the flyers are the two things for the three of you. But if Kevin's got something going on, let's get that obviously done first. So.
I have a question. So what's the best way to communicate to you as an example? We talked about how when I sell a job and I originate the job, I'm going to go ahead and negotiate a price for the labor with the senior tech on that call or the lead laborer. So what's the best way to communicate that to you?
On the timesheet. So on your daily timesheet, per Kevin, you can just put notes on there. If there's notes on there, I'm going to read them. So $20 per hour, if that's what he says, or half of the service volume, or whatever it is. Because you guys, like I said in the past, we have an option. If you sell the job, you have the option of, other than if Kevin or John, when they start selling, or when he starts selling, you guys have the option of saying, okay, hey, I'm going to put this many hours of laborers on there, and I'm going to pay them at this rate. You can give them a portion of the service volume. It's really whoever the tech is of that who sold it, if it is a tech that sold it, it's kind of up to you guys how to do it. So for an example, Mike can say, hey, James, I just sold this job. I'm going to give you X amount per hour, $20 an hour, and it's going to, you guys have to determine how long it's going to take and so on. But keep in mind, that's how you're getting paid, right? So the other option is, now let's say you have Ryan on your team who is a commission sales guy. You can go, Ryan, okay, I'm going to pay you half the service volume. We're going to do this together. Okay? So Ryan says, okay, great. And the reason you want to do that for Ryan a lot of times is this. Ryan wants, as he's making commission, he's going to want his commission dollars volume to go up by the end of the week, right? So if you give him that rather than his hourly, he's got a little bump start to the next job that he may be on and get some more commission. He's going to be able to potentially earn more money throughout the week. So that's kind of why you'd want to do that, to help somebody who's trying to get their service volume up, because they can make a higher percentage as the week goes on. But if it's someone who's not going to get that and you want to pay them hourly, you know what their rates are already, they can tell you that. But if you want to give them a little boost to be able to get done early, hey, this should take you about 5 hours, right? You agree? Okay. 5 hours at $20 an hour.
Yep.
All right, now if it takes them 5.5 hours, I'm going to pay you, I'm going to just write down 5 hours at 20 because that's what I'm paying you. You guys have to agree on that. You can never obviously go lower than the $15 an hour rate that everyone is making. But also take into consideration overtime. Because if they're going in overtime, that has to be paid in addition. So if you're the guy who offered the money to him and he puts overtime hours on there, that gets put on the job too. So that's part of the job cost. Okay, so you guys have to watch your overtime. That's why I always say, get it approved. Don't just start working it. Because some of the jobs I've been looking at the last couple weeks, if your numbers are off by a couple of bucks, that may be why. Because he got a half-hour overtime and you may not have noticed. But if he's in overtime, he's worked over his 8-hour day, and they put overtime on there by law, I got to pay him. So that's going to go to the job, because if they're on the job, it's going to go to the job. If they're here, it's not. If they're doing something for us, it's different. But if they're doing something on that job, I got to pay them overtime. So just keep all that in mind. So if Kevin sells a job, or going forward, John sells a job, and they say, on the time card, all I want you to do is Kevin sold job and whatever that you guys agreed on. This much per hour, this much service volume, because he can divide that up. They can divide that up however they want. If they sell it, they're not the technician doing it. They can say, okay, James, I'm going to pay you X. Mike, I'm going to pay you X. You guys agree? Good. Boom. Okay. Just write it on your sheet so I know what it's going. Because the job's only going to pay so much, so I can't pay, everybody the same thing I can't up until the volume's gone, whatever the agreed deal is. But you guys have to do that. You guys have to let me know what the agreement is on your timesheet, because Kevin may, for an example, say, hey, I'm going to waive this fee for the jetter or whatever. If it doesn't say it on your sheet, I'm not going to waive it. I don't know. I don't want to have to be jumping around and calling Kevin and saying, okay, what'd you guys agree on? What's going on? How much money are you paying?
Then, so when they sell it, or say we sell it, like for instance, Ryan did a job that he and I went on and sold for some ductboard and some minor stuff. would I be taking the channel lead fee on that, and then he'd be going and doing the service volume?
Say that again.
So Ryan and I went out on a call together in Fullerton. I sold it, he went and did it. Because we weren't sure if that would be, I can get the channel lead fee for that, and then he takes the service volume, or if it gets.
Well, you're not,
If it's under
you're,
1,000.
yeah, anything
Yeah,
under
it was under
$1,000.
$1,000, yeah.
Anything under $1,000, if that's what you wanna do, you just wanna take that. I don't have a problem with it, but it has to say on your sheet.
Okay.
Because that also gets subtracted out of his service volume.
Yeah.
Your 10% would come out of that, right? But anything over that, you don't get the channel fee unless
No,
it's
I
gonna
got
go
it.
to your service volume only.
Yeah.
You're not getting, I'm not double dipping on, you're not double dipping on it, so to speak, right?
Right.
But the only ones that can get that is the channels. Channels get
Right.
that 10%. Anything over $1,000, they get that 10%, and that gets subtracted out of the service volume.
If they're the ones that,
Right.
which they should be if it's over $1,000.
Right. They should be at that point. Right. The guy doing the job, or girl, woman. You have anything else, Kevin? That you wanted to questions or comments or?
No, I think that's it.
Okay. I have been uploading these videos on to the YouTube channel, the Kalka YouTube channel. So, and Renard, you have that on your iPad, right?
Yeah.
And what do you log in when you have to log in? Just so
I
everyone.
just search for Kalka heating and air.
Okay. Yeah.
Fine.
That's
So
where
we
that's
don't
where they're
have
at.
to log in or anything, right?
No, it's just on YouTube.
Public?
It's just
Okay.
YouTube. It's public. Yeah, I made it public. So there's 4 videos, I think, or 5 videos on there. I think this will be the 5th one coming today.
I didn't
So the
see
last-
the last one you said from last
I put it
week.
on again this morning, and it said that it was
Pending.
it published it and it was processing this morning. I tried it twice last week, and it for some reason it didn't upload all the
Do you
way.
think we should password that stuff? Because what if our competitors get on YouTube and type in Kalka?
There's nothing in
They
here
can
that's
see our
there's
meetings.
nothing confidential in
Like
there.
our sales meetings or anything, we're not gonna put.
Yeah, I'm not anything
Shut up.
that has to do with with real numbers or anything. I'm not going to put that on there, but just about our meeting it's fine.
Like service concentrating.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Anybody else have any questions?
It's just Alan up there.
Yeah, it's just me.
Sharp.
All right, so that's it, guys. Let's get to work. Make it happen.